Hey everybody, this is Perch, and I'm here with Joe. And how was your weekend, Joe?
It's all right, Perch. How about yours?
Nothing that special, but I hear you got to go. You did some stuff for Free Comic Book Day.
Yeah, I went to a few shops. Out here in Long Island, Fourth World Comics, Next Gen, Escape
Hmm.
Pod on Sunday because they're closed on Saturdays. So they always do Free Comic Book Day on Sunday.
Sure,
So
mix it up a little bit.
yeah,
How was the atmosphere with COVID and everything else? Or were people there excited, getting comics?
people were there excited. It between COVID, August being like the biggest month for vacations out of the year, it being a gorgeous day on one of the last like big like beach days. Could have been planned better,
Yeah,
but well, a little bit,
a little
but
bit.
just a little. But yeah, there were still people. There were people coming out, people picking up some things. A bunch of places had sales to go along with it. That's pretty typical for Free Comic Book Day for some of you who haven't ventured out to do
Hmm.
that. And then some places had signings. Most places in previous years had like some signing, even if it was just like local artist or
Yeah.
writer with like some self-published work or even something like that will be there. But yeah, they had Peter David for the first couple of hours, and then they had Scott Snyder.
So I'm excited to talk to you about that. It's interesting you mentioned it. There was a shop up here in the Pacific Northwest that didn't get a celebrity writer or artist to come in, but they were offering free vaccines if you came in. I That feels like a weird crossover to me, though. Come get a comic and get a shot. I don't know. I I'd love to. I want to know how many vaccines they actually gave out, and that like I mean that just seems like a weird promotion, but
Yeah.
regardless of all that, Peter David. So, what was it like? Peter David, obviously a creator that's been working in comics forever, has done almost everything in
Yeah.
comics at this point. What was it like talking to him?
Oh yeah, it's great. I've met him before. I've talked to him. I had him sign a sketch I got of him as Gambit.
Who did the
That
sketch?
Mike Norton.
Oh, nice.
It
Okay.
was a nice Mike Norton sketch, and he's holding a couple of cards, charging them up, and he wrote in. This was all Mike. This wasn't me. He goes, "Time for a little Ace of Daves,"
Oh no.
which sounds like it could be a Peter David joke. So
Yes.
you know,
Yes. Peter David. So you were mentioning that when you chatted with Peter, you were suggesting a good pitch for a comic he should write, or that you wanted to see him do.
yeah, I was like, I was surprised you never worked on Legion of Superheroes,
Yeah.
and he didn't realize that at the moment, at least. I'm sure in the past he's realized it, but you do so much, and he was like, you know what? I never worked on the Legion of Superheroes. He's like, between all the comics and crossovers and things he's done, that's like one of the larger gaps in his DC work is having never written for those characters.
It's funny you said, because so of course right now there is no Legion of Superheroes comic. I think you put Peter David on a Legion comic right now, I think it's going to sell pretty well.
Yeah.
I mean, no, maybe not.
No. I mean, I think it would be fine. It would be solid. I think if Peter David was working on the Legion of Superheroes now, it would probably be comparable to when he was doing X Factor in the 2010s at Marvel.
Sure.
If not, depending on where it goes, or
Why do you think? So Peter David right now has got this symbiote Spider-Man story
yeah,
in Marvel that they keep kind of renewing, and he's also doing stuff with the Maestro that they keep renewing, kind of over and over these limited series. But it feels like Peter David joins a pretty large group of creators who, for lack of a better word, kind of aged out, or not by their own choice, but they're not
yeah,
getting work. And that list is getting pretty long
yeah.
of people who could do good work, whether it's Peter David or Chris Claremont. There's a lot of names out there. I mean, even George Perez, is semi-retired, I mean, has expressed some interest in writing books. Bob Layton would love to draw things
Hmm.
again for whoever would hire him. There's a lot of these guys out there. Do you think that not that that's a leading question, but why aren't they doing more with some of these creators who are around, arguably have some kind of name? Is it why aren't they? Why do you think they're not giving them more work?
There, there's a few factors. I mean, I do think ageism plays into it to an extent. I think
Mhm.
there is this idea of like, how could someone in their 50s or 60s or even 70s be able to write people in their 30s and things like that, which is weird. Or that, oh, it's too antiquated. They write the old way,
Mm,
the old way that people don't, buy because no one goes back and reads Claremont's X-Men or Batman Year One or The Dark Knight Returns or Watchmen or The
yeah,
Infinity Gauntlet or
nobody buys that stuff. Nobody makes movies off that stuff.
no, not at
Yeah.
all. So yeah, so there is that kind of thing, and whole other that's a whole other issue there. Um, God, I mean, we could do a whole video on that
Yeah.
of just that mentality. But
It's it's there's a lot of these creators out there. They're often at signings. They clearly want to keep working in the industry. In many cases, they're doing smaller independent projects. I ran into Claremont and Jim Starlin and a couple others that all kind of express the same thing. They'd love to have some projects out there. Chris Claremont has some kind of Marvel project that apparently was done like a year or more ago, or who knows, that they just
yeah,
haven't put out yet. Um, it in a time when a lot of creators are leaving, going to Substack, doing kind of their own thing, is it time to maybe bite the bullet and admit that maybe a 50, 60, or 70-year-old person who writes in the old style, maybe you kind of need them to put some of your books out?
I mean, I think so, especially with like it's no one's asking for that to be the whole line.
No, no, no.
But a handful of books when if you're Marvel and you're putting out about 60 or so books a month, six or even 10 of those books feeling more like those kind of books and hiring some of those people, what's the harm in that? I I
Well,
don't see it.
it feels strange, and I know that Mumbles is listening to us right now. He's like, "Who wants to talk about those old people?" But keep in mind, in this same category would be people like Todd McFarlane and Jim Lee and Mark Silvestri and Rob Liefeld. All are also kind of classified in the same vein as being, maybe old style. I've seen people recently make comments about how Todd is like, you know, he's kind of past it, and yet he's churning out these massive sales for Spawn. And I think if for whatever reason Marvel put Todd on a Spider-Man book, I suspect it would sell pretty well, even if it was a one shot.
Oh yeah. No, I mean a lot of that stuff would work. There's people like David Michelinie.
Hmm.
He's seems more than willing to write, more than willing to go to conventions, things like that. But he does have a clear stance of like, people know my work. If you want me to come to your convention, you got to reach out. I'm not going out there and asking people to invite me, and I'm not going and shaking down Marvel and DC and other publishers to give me work because they should know what I've done. And it's
Fair. That's fair.
yeah, but I mean, and that's the case with a lot of these people. I mean, Roger Stern finally is doing something with a small publisher with Ron Friends, but it's shameful that it had to come to that so many years later, and that they couldn't find work for them before that. But there's been things here and there. Where they hired some people. It's been a long time, I think, since we've seen like Tom DeFalco on something, but he was involved even with the New 52.
Hmm.
He was writing a couple things, but so much of it is strictly editorial, who they know. That's the kind of thing where it's like, oh, Bob Harris is at DC. Scott Lobdell and, Tom DeFalco and people like that can get work there.
Yeah.
And it shouldn't really be like that, but it is. And
Yeah.
I wish that system was different.
It again, you mentioned earlier, not for your whole line, but it feels like if you are trying to kind of competently put out 40, 50, 60 books, 30 of which are Batman or whatever it happens to be.
Right.
It feels like having a handful of people, not all, but at least a small subsection of people who have been doing this job forever, who have some level of proven sales record, just feels like that'd be good business sense. I mean, Peter David's Symbiote Spider-Man comic is shipped pretty much on time.
Yeah.
I mean, granted, I think Greg Land's doing the book for that, and he's got a massive library of porn at this point to make his drawings from. But
Absolutely.
but I mean, he hits his schedules. We don't hear about big delays. We don't hear about having to slip or any of that kind of stuff. And it seems to be this very consistent seller.
Yeah.
And it feels like any big comic company would love to have at least a handful of those consistent sellers out there, or at least you'd hope.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I mean, you touched on it earlier, but I mean, is it purely just a bias, like you mentioned, of that these guys are too old, they can't write in the current style, they don't understand our characters, they write in a way that's not reflective of our new books. I mean, that seems like a very weird take when you're hiring people with virtually no experience to come in and write things in an experimental way that has no proven track record. It feels like that's a very strange choice. Is this on editorial then, or why?
I think so, but that strange choice, the opposite end of that coin, from an editorial standpoint, is, look, if I've been an editorial for 5, even 10 years or something like that, I hire someone like Claremont, for example. I'm a kid, quote unquote. He's going to tell me how it's done and not respect me in the way that I feel I should be. If I bring in a kid, I bring in some young up-and-comer, I'm doing them a favor, and I'm the one molding them and telling them how we do things, and I'm going to get a lot less pushback. It's not like I'm just going to be like, look, I'm doing you a favor. This is your first Marvel gig. You owe me. So this is how we do it. And there's no guff. And someone just breaking in, like someone like Claremont, couldn't care less. Like, oh, you're not going to hire me again on the whatever. I've done this and that. I'm good. Someone up and coming, this is their first Marvel book or DC book or whatever. They're going to be like, oh my God, I better do everything right. Yes, sir, ma'am. I'm going to do this, and like, oh, you're asking me to do rewrites right away. I'm gonna make sure this gets done, and they're not going to have the same pushback on rates and things like that. Like some of these people, they might be like, you're offering me the same rate you were giving me 15, 20 years ago? Like, no. But, some of these other people, it's just, oh, well, of course, whatever you want, whatever gets me there. And as an editor, if you're in that position, you can see where that is preferable.
Yeah. I mean, it's sad, but
it is. Oh, it's very sad.
I get subservience and, less friction, and you just kind of move things along. It just, over time, I think you may not realize it, but you're cutting yourself in the throat, because a lot of these people who are coming in, brand new, no experience, doing whatever you say, you as the editor have to be a complete mastermind genius at everything you're doing, because you're not getting any of the experience of the veteran you're bringing in to work on the title.
Yeah.
And so, that's a lot of self-confidence there. But people who have a lot of self-confidence that's justified probably would have no issues working with somebody like Claremont, because they're confident in their abilities. So it's it's a weird that's a weird process. But I mean that's depressing for comic for it's depressing for me. I mean, if you're a comic reader, that sucks. I to think that hey, I could get this comic with Claremont or David or Michelini or one of these kinds of people. I could get, I could get Todd doing a Spider-Man one shot if he'd submit to it. But instead, I'm gonna get a comic by somebody who wasn't going to cause any friction for me.
Yeah.
Ouch.
Well, it sucks, but at the same time, too, a lot of these editors are working on way more books than
Sure.
their predecessors were. So you can. I'm not. It really sucks. I really want to hammer down how this sucks. But you can see when someone's like, I'm editing 16 books a month, I need as few headaches as possible.
Yeah,
So,
no, I get it. I totally get that. I just, I don't know. It also feels like a case where several of these creators who have been in the business for a long time, I mean, Peter David, I think
Sure.
it's not a huge shock. I mean, he's kind of got a prickly personality. I always enjoyed talking to him, but I know that some people have felt like he was off-putting at times, especially, I guess, if you're Romani. But I mean, like people who have done thousands of comics can't be that hard to work with. They've got the track record behind them. It just, I don't know, that's a depressing look inside the industry. So, what are you gonna do?
Oh well, it's
Yeah. God damn it. So who? All right. Well, we'll end this on a happier note. Who would you like? Who's somebody you'd like to see from the past on a book? Like, what would you like?
oh,
If you're
there are so many people I'd like to see again.
just dreamcast a few, if you would.
I mean, I'd love to see like people like Conway and Doug Menck back on Batman.
Yeah.
And see what they could do with it. I'd love to see, I'd love to see Rachel Pollack do Wonder Woman.
Yeah, I'd be interested to see that.
She's got a deep understanding of Greek mythology and other things that I think would lend itself to working on that book. I mean, geez, like you think about it, obviously Peter David, Legion of Superheroes, I think would be great. There's such a glut of people out there you want to see tackle some of this stuff. And then there's people like Dan Jurgens, who's kind of working on some things, but I don't know how much longer.
Yeah,
he is. But
what about like a Jim Starlin doing a Guardians run or something that's a little bit to cast, a little bit to form?
I think with Starlin, I'd almost rather see him focus on, maybe like Adam Warlock or something like that. He's come back and done a little bit with like Thanos in particular, but maybe certain casts of Guardians could be cool. Silver Surfer,
yeah,
could be interesting.
What about like putting Frank Miller on like Miss Marvel?
Not sure. I don't know if I have a dream casting for Miss Marvel. I'd have to think on that. But
I was curious which way you're going to go with that one.
Yeah, no, I'm like, I don't know. But actually, you know what? How about Jim Starlin back on Captain Marvel?
Yeah, that would be great.
It'd be an interesting way to approach that. And same thing for just so many of these artists. Like, the hell did Kieran Dwyer go? I think he's doing like advertising art and stuff like that. Yes. So I'm sure he's making a lot more money. But Kieran Dwyer, get him back on Cap or Superman or something like that. Like,
100%.
Put
him on Batman. I mean,
yeah, put him on Batman. I mean, there's so many people I'd love to. I'd love Tim Sale working on just like the straight up Batman title for like a year. Lock him in on it for at least a year on a run every month.
Yep.
Have Tim Sale do that instead of him just coming back periodically to do a cover or a one shot or something like that. There's so many artists that it's just like, just get him to do the interiors of the damn book and let him do it for a while. Get David Latham on a run of Batman again,
I
or
totally
Detective
agree with that.
Comics.
Yeah.
That's a no-brainer. But he just did a one-shot Secret Origins or Secret Files Huntress, and I think he's doing another one-shot Batman related coming up. But yeah, like just get him on that. Like, come on. Like, just spend the money.
No, tons of options. Again, I think Marvel would make money if they paired up Michelini and Todd on a Spider-Man book. That's how you get your 1 million copies. I think that you could put. We've seen Rob Liefeld come over and do little bits of projects with Deadpool and other things, but can somebody write Mark Silvestri a check and have him do a 4-part X-Men series or something? Could you put Silvestri on Daredevil? That would be pretty interesting to see how that would go down.
Sure. I'd want Silvestri on just like, again, it's like just like the run, not that like weird 4-issue Days of Future Pasty kind of thing he did at the end of New X-Men.
Give him a run, a real run, or a finite series of some kind, but give him something.
Yeah. Well, so many of these things, it's like, and this is another video we'll do at some point. So done with these miniseries. Just have more main books, and then allow a main book to have like a run of like a year of a team. Yes. And then you keep going, and you keep the numbering going and all that. Like, just have, Silvestri do, again, same thing with like someone like Tim Sale, like lock him in for a year, get him to do, X-Men is just like the artist on X-Men, and just do that again. What about Paul Smith?
Yes. Paul Smith is out there, and his rate is very low for what, really low. Like, could Paul Smith do a year? There's always questions about, as they get older, can they kind of keep up with the schedule? But that's what you plan it out ahead. You give more of a lead time. It feels like you could do it, but oh well, Joe. So thank you for depressing me a little bit. That was fun. I always appreciate that, and
of course,
I'm glad you got to talk to. We should talk to Peter David at some near point.
We should. We should talk to him. He's great. We got to ask him about Space Cases.
Yes, Claremont too, for that matter. Both those guys. We should line up.
Yeah, I know. We should talk to Claremont. Yeah, what we should do. We'll really throw him off. We'll talk to him about Space Cases. So you could just be like, "What the hell are you talking about?"
That's definitely what we want to do. It's good to irritate these people. They've paid their dues, so now let's poke them a little bit.
Although I would love, and this is no joke, I'd love to do an interview where we spend like an hour and a half talking about Claremont, and we never mention the X-Men.
Yeah.
Just like, so you did Thor, and this, and then you're on Fantastic Four, and how was that? And just like not even mention it.
I think he would really appreciate that, and none of the listeners would.
Yeah, but that sounds perfect, though.
that's what the show goes for.
That's incredible. I think we already kind of did that a little bit with Joe Casey, because multiple people were like, "You didn't even talk to Joe Casey about the stuff I wanted to hear about." Everyone wanted more of the Image stuff.
Well, Joe Casey wants to come back and do more, and we got to talk to Joe Casey about his creation of the incredible America Chavez as well.
Yeah, I can't believe we didn't talk about America's Sweetheart.
That is low-hanging fruit there. Well, Joe, thank you very much, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thanks. You too.